this week's lecture, Tweak Your Slides. This lesson is divided into a few different sections, covering 3 to 4 basic design lessons that I've learned along the way. Each principle is organized in this way. First, we'll cover what not to do, and I'll use my slides as examples. And then we'll cover what to do instead, and I'll show you how I revise my slides. At times, I'll show you what my students did. Let's start by talking about the first step in the journey, which is thinking like a designer. Now, what does it mean to think like a designer? Designers make intentional decisions. They are problem solvers. They work to blend their own ideas with those of their client, always with the end user's experience in mind. You could say that they are audience-centered. This is one of my favorite designers, David McCandless. McCandless is a data visualizer, journalist, and author, and he is really my inspiration when it comes to visual design. Check out his website, informationisbeautiful.net, and his amazing TED Talk on design. McCandless provides us with some good news. We're all naturally prone and primed to respond to visual images. This is one of McCandless's visualizations. What he's illustrating here is that successful information design needs all 4 of these areas. In which of these areas are you strongest? In which area do you need the most work? Consider how relevant the information is, how useful, its form, and how accurate it is. So, how do Duarte's ideas help us think like a designer? Duarte has created a 3-part structure for designing and delivering visual aids. I call this structure the effective slide triumvirate, or rule of 3. If you apply these 3 structures, your slides will certainly find favor with the king. We're going to spend the remaining time discussing a few of the principles in the effective slide triumvirate, as well as some important lessons I've learned along the way in my journey. The first lesson is probably the hardest to actually apply consistently, and that is do not use bullets. And I start with this one because it's the one that we have the most difficulty letting go of. Believe me, I shared this apprehension. This is a set of slides I used in a composition course in the past. Now, what's wrong with these bullets being the conveyor of information? Well, remember what Duarte says about using the right tool the right way? Using bullets in an irresponsible way, and that means not trying to find another way to convey that information, can sometimes really deflate or kill the momentum of your audience. Teaching 8-hour blocks is definitely a lesson here. Instead, what I learned to do is use text purposely. Text should be used to convey not only meaning, but also reinforce that visual idea. It should be consistent, and it should be readable. Those 2 rules guide all of my text choices. When choosing between serif and sans serif fonts, it's important to consider readability. One of my favorite places to look for both kinds of fonts is DaFont. Another place where I found some good alternatives to that now ubiquitous Comic Sans is Comic Sans Criminal. Make sure also that whatever font you plan on using for this presentation is installed on the computer on which you're going to present. Otherwise, the font will not display. Here's my revision of that previous slide. I've removed all of that extra text. I'll show you what I do with it later on.